What if the success or failure of a nation wasn't random but followed a predictable pattern? What if understanding the past could help us prepare for the future? Ray Dalio, a billionaire investor, founder of Bridgewater Associates, and one of the world's most influential thinkers, explores these questions in his book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. Dalio spent decades studying the patterns of history to uncover why nations rise and fall. Dalio's journey began with his career in finance, where he witnessed firsthand how economic cycles impact businesses and countries. But as he looked deeper, he realized these cycles weren't just about money. They were about people, politics, power, and the way societies function. In this book, Dalio introduces us to the big cycle, a repeating pattern in history where nations ascend to power, reach their peak, and eventually decline. He explains how three major forces, debt and economics, internal social stability, and external geopolitical dynamics, determine a nation's fate. So, what can we learn from these cycles? And more importantly, how can we use these insights to shape a better future for ourselves and our nations? Let's dive in. At the heart of Ray Dalio's book is one profound insight. History operates in cycles. Empires rise, they flourish, and eventually, they fall. These patterns, or what Dalio calls the big cycle, are not random. They are driven by recurring forces that have shaped our world for centuries. Take the Dutch Empire as an example. In the 17th century, the Netherlands was a global superpower, dominating trade and innovation. But as its debt grew and competitors like Britain emerged, its influence declined. Next came the British Empire, which reached its peak during the Industrial Revolution. But overextension, World War costs, and rising powers like the United States signaled its decline. And then, the United States emerged, powered by innovation, a strong economy, and global influence. But today, we see signs of strain, growing debt, political polarization, and competition from nations like China. So what drives these cycles? Dalio identifies three major forces. 1. Debt cycles. The rise and fall of economies often begin with how nations manage their money. Too much debt can lead to crises. 2. Internal order and disorder. Social stability is critical. When inequality grows and trust in institutions erodes, chaos often follows. 3. External order and disorder. Geopolitical dynamics like wars or trade disputes can disrupt a nation's standing on the world stage. These forces interact in predictable ways, creating patterns we can study. By looking at the past, Dalio argues, we can better understand what might happen in the future. Empires may look different, but the forces shaping their rise and fall remain the same. This insight is not just a lesson in history, it's a tool for navigating our world today. Why do nations rise to power and achieve greatness? According to Ray Dalio, the foundation of a successful nation lies in three critical elements: economic strength, innovation, and social stability. Let's break these down. 1. Economic strength. First and foremost, economic strength is the backbone of any nation's rise. Productivity growth drives wealth creation. This means that when people and businesses produce more efficiently, the economy expands. In the early 20th century, the United States experienced massive growth, fueled by industrialization and mass production. By investing in infrastructure and education, the U.S. built a workforce capable of driving innovation and progress. 2. Innovation. Innovation is the second pillar of success. Nations that lead in technology and ideas gain a competitive edge on the global stage. For example, during the Industrial Revolution, Britain's breakthroughs in machinery and manufacturing made it a global superpower. More recently, the U.S. capitalized on innovation through Silicon Valley, becoming a leader in technology, from computers to artificial intelligence. These advancements not only drive economic growth but also shape the nation's influence worldwide. Dalio points out that nations that fail to innovate eventually lose their competitive edge, as others surpass them in productivity and influence. 3. Social stability. The third key is social stability. A nation's success depends on unity, trust in institutions, and effective governance. When people feel connected and supported by their government, They worked together to build a stronger society. After World War II, nations like the US and Germany invested in social programs and rebuilt their institutions, fostering stability and trust. This sense of unity allowed them to recover and thrive. But when inequality grows too large or political divisions deepen, social cohesion breaks down. Dalio warns that this often marks the beginning of a nation's decline. Anecdotes and data. Dalio's research reveals a consistent pattern. Nations that prioritize education, invest in new technologies, and maintain a balance between equality and growth tend to dominate for decades or even centuries. This is the formula for long-term success. Economic strength, innovation, and social stability are the pillars of a nation's success. When these elements align, nations thrive. But what happens when these pillars crumble? In the next section, we'll explore why nations fail and how decline begins. If success is built on economic strength, innovation, and social stability, failure often begins when these foundations weaken. According to Ray Dalio, the decline of nations follows a predictable path. Let's explore the three major warning signs: debt crises, wealth inequality, and geopolitical overreach. 1. Debt crises. The first warning sign is excessive debt. Nations often borrow heavily to fund wars, public projects, or social programs. While borrowing can stimulate growth in the short term, unchecked debt leads to instability. Take the Great Depression of 1929. Excessive borrowing and speculative investments created an unsustainable bubble. When the bubble burst, it triggered a global economic crisis. In modern times, the 2008 financial crisis showed how debt-fueled growth can spiral into chaos. Dalio warns that rising debt levels in today's world could signal even greater risks ahead. 2. Wealth inequality. Next, wealth inequality. As the gap between the rich and poor widens, social tensions increase, people lose trust in institutions, and conflict becomes inevitable. In 18th century France, extreme inequality led to the French Revolution. The ruling elite enjoyed immense wealth, while the majority of citizens struggled to survive. This imbalance fueled unrest, eventually toppling the monarchy. Today, we see similar patterns. In many countries, the richest 1% control a significant portion of wealth. According to Dalio, if these disparities continue unchecked, they could lead to widespread instability. 3. Geopolitical overreach. The third warning sign is geopolitical overreach. When nations extend their influence too far, whether through military campaigns or global dominance, they often drain their resources and invite conflict. The Roman Empire is a classic example. As Rome expanded its territories, it overextended its military and financial resources. Internal corruption and external invasions eventually led to its collapse. Dalio also highlights modern examples, where prolonged military engagements strain national budgets and divide public opinion, weakening a nation's global position. Data and trends. Dalio's research reveals striking patterns. Rising debt, increasing inequality, and geopolitical overreach often occur simultaneously, accelerating a nation's decline. The path to failure is clear. Unchecked debt, growing inequality, and overreach are recipes for disaster. But are these challenges inevitable? Can nations avoid decline by learning from the past? In the next section, we'll explore what Dalio suggests for navigating these challenges. The global balance of power is shifting. As one superpower faces mounting challenges, another is rising rapidly to take its place. Ray Dalio's analysis of the current world order sheds light on these tectonic changes. China's rise. China's rise has been nothing short of remarkable. Over the last 40 years, economic reforms transformed it from a largely agrarian society into the world's second-largest economy. Investments in infrastructure, technology, and education have fueled unprecedented growth. In 1980, China's GDP was just a fraction of the U.S.'s. Today, it rivals the U.S. in purchasing power and is projected to surpass it in absolute terms in the coming decades. China has also expanded its global influence through initiatives like the Belt and Road Project, which invests in infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Europe. This has strengthened its economic and diplomatic ties worldwide. Challenges facing the U.S. Meanwhile, the United States faces significant internal challenges. Political polarization has reached historic levels, making it harder to achieve consensus on critical issues. Social divisions and declining trust in institutions are eroding the nation's stability. Economically, the U.S. is burdened by rising debt. Dalio warns that excessive borrowing to fund wars, social programs, and stimulus packages could weaken the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, a cornerstone of American power. The U.S. also spends heavily on military operations abroad, which some argue comes at the expense of investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure at home. Potential conflicts. Dalio cautions that history shows rising and declining powers often clash. He calls this the Thucydides trap, named after the historian who observed similar dynamics in ancient Greece. Today, trade wars, technological competition, and territorial disputes, particularly in the South China Sea, are points of friction between the U.S. and China. While cooperation is still possible, the risks of conflict, whether economic, political, or even military, are growing. Dalio warns that if these tensions escalate, the consequences could be devastating for both nations and the world. China's rise and the U.S.'s challenges represent a critical turning point in the global order. As history shows, these moments of transition are fraught with risks but also opportunities. The question is, will we learn from the past or repeat its mistakes? Understanding the rise and fall of nations is not just a lesson in history. It's a guide for building a better future. Ray Dalio offers actionable principles for both nations and individuals to navigate the challenges of our time. 1. Reducing debt and managing finances. First, managing finances responsibly is essential. Nations must balance borrowing with sustainable economic policies. Excessive debt may fuel short-term growth, but often leads to long-term instability. Dalio emphasizes the importance of reducing debt during prosperous times to prepare for future downturns. For individuals, this means saving wisely, investing in productive assets, and avoiding unsustainable lifestyles. 2. Bridging inequality gaps. Second, bridging the gap between the rich and poor is critical. Inequality isn't just an economic issue, it's a social one. When inequality grows unchecked, it erodes trust and leads to unrest. Nations can address this by implementing fair tax policies, investing in education, and fostering innovation that benefits everyone. For individuals, Dalio advises focusing on education and skills that align with the evolving economy. 3. Fostering collaboration between nations. Finally, fostering collaboration is key to avoiding destructive conflicts. History shows that when nations work together, they achieve more. Whether it's rebuilding after World War II or tackling global challenges like climate change. Dalio stresses the need for open dialogue and mutual respect between nations. For individuals, supporting leaders and policies that prioritize diplomacy and cooperation can make a significant difference. By reducing debt, addressing inequality, and fostering collaboration, nations can build a more stable and prosperous future. And as individuals, we all have a role to play through our choices, actions, and the values we uphold. History doesn't just tell us where we've been, it shows us where we're going. Ray Dalio's principles for dealing with the changing world order reminds us that cycles of rise and decline are inevitable, but they're also opportunities to learn, adapt, and shape the future. The rise of nations like the Dutch, British, and American empires taught us about innovation and growth. Their decline revealed the dangers of debt, inequality, and overreach. As we look at today's challenges, we stand at a critical crossroads. Will we learn from the past or repeat its mistakes? Each of us has a role to play. Whether it's through the choices we make, the policies we support, or the way we prepare ourselves for the future, our actions matter. Together, we can build a world that learns from history instead of being trapped by it. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and insight. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to explore the big ideas shaping our world and how we can navigate them together. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think we can create a better future? Let's start the conversation.